Conscious communication, presenting, styling, body language. In short, get conscious in communication is what we will be talking in this presentation. Welcome to the today's video. So, communication is the way you want to pronounce this. Communication, communication, the process by which information is exchanged between two individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, and behavior. I have deliberately removed the word called language out here. It might be of symbols, it might be of signs, and anything and everything. Remember, we are talking about conscious communication, presenting body language, the art of making wonderful communication thereby. So let us understand the quality of communication, how frequent it should be, and what it should be happening in cases it becomes infrequent. And when it is very frequent, it is of low richness. It can be memos, it can be videos, it can be email. Because as on when you keep on changing these things, right? But as you pass it out, when a voicemail, that means there are no chances for you to edit it back. One, voicemail are also another way of communication where the receiver might choose to respond, might not choose to respond. So it's almost one-way communication, which might not be the cases with video, email, memos, and letters. And you are doing it on a frequent basis, remember. So it might be of low richness. But as you move it to the other side, let's say in an online discussion group in which you are actually typing in, feeding in, all your marks have been kept, remarks have been stated, stored all together. Then there is something called live speeches. Now this is where we are getting much more less frequent. You remember live speeches, we almost do it, address it, a public speaking once in a blue moon on a month, or probably the case might be it is definitely on a lesser side. But what is also definitely, it is a one-way communication. If it is a live speeches, you are expected to speak and the audience has to be receiving it, receptive about it. Probably there is a Q&A session, the question and answer session at the fag end of the speeches, but probably does it foster a discussion? Probably to a certain extent, but not to in the minutest of detail. And then there is something called telephone conversation. Nowadays, definitely telephone etiquettes have changed. What is happening with infrequent conversation is about high richness that comes around it. It's the face-to-face communication when we speak in person or in video conferences. Now, this is what we are looking into it. This is what is our highest richness, where there is an exchange of ideas as often as possible. That is what we are looking as the quality of communication is concerned. Remember, memos, letters, videos are of low richness. Online discussion, voicemail, people might choose to respond, might not. Online discussion groups, it's getting noted and stored all together. Live speeches would be where you have a little bit of a Q&A sessions, telephone conversation. Definitely people can respond. So you see the richness and the low richness and how frequent and infrequent that you people can do around it. This is what is all been stated about the quality of communication thereby. So let us understand why communication is so important. Remember, communication helps us to understand a person. It helps us to decipher a situation. It enables us to resolve our own differences and probably build in a sense of camaraderie among people altogether. So that is the reason why communication is of utmost important. Remember, no two people can ever communicate perfectly. However, the more clearly we can communicate, the greater is the ability to a trust, to a belief, to a faith in each other. And that is what we are looking into it. Two people communicating, there will always be gaps. There will always be gaps between their understanding and the communication methodology thereby. That doesn't mean that they should stop communicating. In fact, what I suggest, in case if you find there are gaps or people are misunderstanding you, start communicating frequently, start communicating in person, reiterate the statement that you want to be thorough for, until and unless people trust you, until and unless people get you. The only way to build a stronger relationship is communication. Remember, heart goes fonder not by distance, by the lack of communication. So you might be staying with your partners or with your team and at different corners of the world. The distance doesn't matter until and unless you are stopping your communication. In case even if your partners or your team members are within under the same roof and you're not communicating, you are probably at a much very big distance between both of yours. So that is what the goals of communication should be all about. It is all about building relationship, it is all about persuading, it is all about informing. So basic goals, remember, it is to inform, to persuade, and to forge stronger bond among team members, among people, as the as this particular slide shows to you, to understand what is to inform, what is to persuade, and what is to build relationship thereby. So the ability to effectively communicate with others, and one of the most important tools for professional and personal success, is what we require. Why is the effective communication required? Because it ensures success in both your fields of personal and professional. The way you communicate, the empathy, the passion that you put through, the way people understand you is the reason why they will start trying trusting you and having a faith in your abilities. So effective communication can always influence others. Your capacity to communicate is often seen as an indicator of your ability and intelligence. This is what we are looking at it. If you don't go by, you don't reflect at all. This is what we are looking out here. So seek first to understand and then to be understood. This is one of the parameters that people need to tell, and that is the reason why I have devoted a full complete slide to this particular thing. People are communicating. At times they are communicating so frequently and so in person that it is become just another noises around it. It is basically confusing the other person, and in the way of making much more frequent communication, they are actually ending up confusing the state of affairs and the person thereby. It is not helping them. What is the problem in this case is the people are communicating, speaking, utilizing symbols and so on and so forth, but they are not at all listening. So first and foremost thing, please try to understand before before you want to be understood. Until and unless give if you give a weightage you to the other person will not appreciate your feeling. So seek first to understand the other fellow, other gentleman, other lady, other people in the room, and then to be understood. So 80% of the workplace issues, I repeat, 80% approximately, out of out of every five issues in the workplace, four are related to communication. So the elements of personal communications, this is what we need to go around it. The verbs and verbal are only 7%, but believe me or not, we stress around 97% uh, pointers into the words and the verbal thing. 97%. There's a difference between 7 and 97. So everybody stresses on the words. They would stress on the verbal abilities, and probably they will negate the body language. Remember, body language plays the major role around here. Out what we go around, this is the body language, which is 55% actually happens in your personal communication. The 38% in personal communication, if you want to go, it is other written words. It's not the verbal thing. It's this is where you speak it from your mind, from your mouth, and this is where you speak it from your mind. As such, the 38% of the things gets impacted out there, and this is where we actually falter around it. What actually happens in terms of the real life, 90%, 97 percentage people stress on the words on the verbal thing, 2% on the written word, and 1% on the body language, which is a wrong assumption in the very first place. In your personal communication space, it is your 55% of is your body language. The way you carry yourself, the way you show your concern, uh, the way you depict or establish yourself within your community will tell by your body language, and they will understand to accept it or not to. See, if words disagree with the tone of the voice and non-verbal behaviors, people tend to believe that tonality and non-verbal behavior much more. Remember, I might be angry with you, but I might not be saying it at a louder voice. Probably what will happen, people will think despite the negative voice, the tone was absolutely friendly, so things could have been managed in well. But then my anger, my frustration will only creep in and will only enhance within me, and it might burst out one particular day in a negative connotation. So need to understand if words disagree with the tone of the voice, so there has to be a perfect pitch and perfect marriage between the tone and the words that you are talking and the non-verbal behaviors. People tend to put much more weightage onto the tone and the non-verbal behaviors of the person thereby. So this is what we are trying to do around it. Remember, what a non-verbal communication, it is the gestures that you make on your face, the facial expression, it is the contact, eye contact, people actually seeing watching one another and probably stating or just making a passing reference, the body movement, the gestures, whether it is affirmative, whether it is negative, you need to go around it, the postures, the way you want to carry yourself, the way you show that you are completely in attention with what actually is happening in the room and in the vicinity of yours, the tone of the voice and the muscle tension and breathing, what actually happens as a non-verbal communication. This is the fulcrum of the thing that needs to be taken care. Remember, people unconsciously give some more weightage to the non-verbal communication. So how do you improve to read those signs? The first and foremost thing is to watch people, observe them. You will see the most confident of the leader, the most successful of the leaders are the person who actually can read people, and they have developed this reading people by just by watching them. Be aware of the differences, be aware from what background the people are saying and putting things in perspective. Try to learn them, try to understand them, look at the nonverbal signals as a whole, as a case might be, as in what is to be expected and how do you go about. That is what we are looking for as in communication abilities are concerned. Let me take you to the 8 tricks, 8 simple tricks of reading people's the body languages. This is what I keep on saying, what I have practiced, and I'm trying to tell it to you. First and foremost thing, if people are speaking to you with your crossed leg and probably with your crossed arm, they are resistant to their idea. They have their own boundaries created and they are not opening out of their gates and coming out to meet you. When real smile crinkles in the eyes, smile doesn't comes on the cheeks, it should be reflected in the eyes. When you see a real smile in the eyes, things have been won, people have been won, hearts have been won altogether. Copying your body language itself is a good thing. When people try to mimic you unconsciously. That means they are putting you on a higher pedestal. Postures tells the story, the way you carry yourself. It tells how good, bad, ugly you want to do around it. Eyes that lie. I have always said about it, eyes is the windows to the soul. It is the eyes which will give you the first hint whether they are telling the truth or they are misappropriating the facts. So raised eyebrows signal discomfort. It is in your forehead, at your temple. If you see there are lines, there are marks, there are gesture that comes around it. The eyes, the eyebrows, if they are been moving in a outward directions, they are not in sync with you and they are not comfortable being there. Exaggerated nodding signals shows anxiety. If people are fidgeting, if people are uncomfortable, if people are moving every now and then without any rhymes or reasons, they are not very clear about themselves, about the approval that you are soliciting. A clenched jaws shows signals, it's a muscle strain that has been shown around it. It tells that the person is probably under stress and probably getting humiliated, feeling humiliated, getting stressed, is not comfortable, and is being agitated in the shortest of the term. That is the 8 tricks for reading people's body language, and it is not only with people, it happens with you also, audience, my dear audience. This is what the factual part of life is all about it. So take full care. The full care of yourself is more important. Make adjustment as necessary. Be kind to yourself. If you are struggling with this new reality, any change takes time to get used to, and everyone's specific work situation and team dynamics are different. This is what we are looking out here every now and then. This is the fact that needs to be carried out. Absolutely mesmerizing. Take care of yourself, love yourself, respect yourself. Until and unless you respect yourself, nobody else will do the same. So keep social distancing. It's a key strategy to prevent transmission, but it can come as a social and a mental health cause. Anything. It can further a sense of isolation from one another and make us forget that we are together. Keep in touch. Now, this is what social distancing is all about. It with the advent of COVID-19, people have coined this particular terms and social distancing. But in the name of social distancing, we get ourselves so distant from their ideas, from the reality, that it becomes very difficult to reintegrate. Did I say distance doesn't make the heart fonder? It is. Or you don't lose a relationship just because there's a distance between two parties thereby, but you lose a relation when you stop communicating with one another. Silence is the biggest enemy of any relationship. So be in touch, keep in touch, do speak around it. That is how you will improvise everything that needs to be taken care for. As far as conscious communication is concerned, remember, be conscious about yourself. Develop your emotional awareness. Emotional awareness can be learned, can be developed. Once strongly developed, you will know that you are feeling without having to think about it. You will be able to use those emotional cues to more accurately read others, to more accurately find things about people all by yourself. So develop an emotional awareness. Be sure as to what you are going to go about it. So let us understand, you never communicate until and unless every behavior is a way of communication, because behavior does not have a counterpart. There is nothing called an anti behavior. It is not possible not to communicate at all. Even if you are silent, you are saying, you are portraying that you are not comfortable with the person, with the group. Even if you are, it's your behavior itself will be communicating something. As a social person, as we are all living in a society, it is just not possible not to communicate. Anything, any gestures, any methodology, any, even your avoidance, even if you being staying all by yourself as in isolation, is a way of communication. Remember, you cannot not communicate. Every behavior is a kind of communication, because behavior does not counterpart. As there's nothing called anti behavior. It is absolutely impossible not to communicate. That is what I keep on saying to all of us. No matter what we do, no matter how we carry ourselves, we are doing one thing inadvertently, and that is what we are communicating our intention, communicating our beliefs, communicating our viewpoints, the way we carry ourselves. This is what exactly has been meant around it. So communication is not a time to hold back with your people. Send people updates, regular communication, even if there is not a new information. The message is largely personal. The people are isolated. Over communications is more important than ever, as the case might be. If you want to go across, yes, we do so behavioral communication style evaluation that comes around it. Let us understand what the behavioral communication style is all about. It is to be done on a four quadrant. Remember, as behavioral communication, when you are being on a y-axis, been plotted on the transparency basis, when you are completely open and completely closed, or when your communication style has been plotted on an x-axis, when you are communicating indirectly and communicating directly. So when you are open and when you are direct, you are basically a socializer involved in influencing other people. You are being very open and being very direct. But what happens when you are guarded and but direct? So it becomes a director, as in a dominant communication. You are not expecting a feedback at all, as if you are instructing, as if you are indirecting altogether. As a director, you will say, get the things done, and it needs to be done. But what happens? Neither you are very guarded, and you are not communicating in a direct fashion. You are indirectly communicating. So what are you doing? You probably are a thinker. You are communicating a lot with yourself and probably fiddling with your consciousness. And that is what has been done. To do or not to do, to say or not to say, is what about the thinker possibilities of communication style creeps in. This is what has been done. Comes the last option when you are open, but probably your communication style is not very direct. You are probably trying to build a consciousness, or you probably trying are new to the system. You are basically a relator and is early working upon it. You are definitely open to the styles of situations, but your communications, your authority, your confidence is yet to be developed. So as a relator, you look at to be steady. Remember, ideally, we should be always be open and direct. Have a socializers, have a group of friends, a circle of family to be encircled upon, and the time of needs. We come to the very last slide for the day. I'll give you the platinum rules of communication. Remember, communicate with others that they want you to be communicating with. So this is what we want to go around it. Communicate with others that they want to be communicated with. Show them respect, show them dignity, always treat them as a human being, and I am sure this will elevate your communication style. Consciously or unconsciously, you will achieve the epitome of success. Thank you for watching this video.